welcome along to episode 16 of the Actors Toolkit podcast. Today we're joined by an actress who I've known for a long, long time, longer than I care to remember. But it's the lovely Reanne Farley. Reanne, how are you doing?
I'm really well. Thanks for having me on.
You are
Lovely to
more than
see you
welcome.
again, Jamie. It's been a while.
It has been, it has. So, for those that don't know, Rianne and I went to drama school, but which was over 20 years ago now since we graduated, which is absolutely terrifying. Time is going too quickly, but here we are. So, first of all, do you want to tell our listeners who is Rianne Farley? Tell us a little bit about your career so far.
Oh, wow. Who is Reanne Farley? Still trying to figure that out, as always. Oh God. Well, I actually have always wanted to be an actor. I loved singing and acting. And when I was a very little kid, I used to get up. My dad was in a football team, and I used to get up at their socials and sing and kind of get dragged off the stage. And yeah, I was obsessed with certain films and things when I was a kid. And then I got taken to the theater. I think I was about 6 years old to see Oliver, the musical Oliver. And I still remember it. I was just like, I can't believe that I'm feeling all these, like, this creation in front of me is creating all these emotions. And the set was so simple. It was made, I guess it was made out of wood. It looked almost like cardboard, and it was like the set of London, and it was just black. And then the stage managers came on and they moved the set, so you saw everything getting changed, and you saw the whole, it was almost like you saw behind the scenes. And I was like, wow, it's amazing that they're creating this world and we're believing it. And then you get shown the illusion as well. And I was like, I want to be part of something like that. I want to be part of something that creates that kind of awe, I guess, and wonder, and all the emotions. You're sad one minute, you're happy the next. It's um and and so I kind of always, I was in a very small school. There was only about 36 students, and one of our teachers used to write plays, and so started doing these plays, and we were always working on plays, never really doing proper schoolwork. I don't know if they got monitored, but I just loved it. The more I did it, we used to get entered into like singing and poetry, and even Bible reading competitions and things like this. And I just loved it. I just loved the creativity of it. And so I actually, because I knew what I wanted to do, I left school at 16. I did my hires in 1 year, and I went to theatre arts course in Dundee. And then I was too young to go to drama school. So, but I decided to move to Edinburgh anyway. So I lived in Edinburgh for a year before I went, and then auditioned, thankfully got in there. And yeah, and then, I mean, we trained together. Since drama school, it's kind of been up and down. I've had some amazing work. I've also had times where I've been like, what am I doing? Nothing's happening. There's no auditions. Um, Recently, touch wood, it's been great. My current agent is amazing. She's got me seen by new casting directors still that I'd never met before. And I find it really exciting still. Um I do a technique called Meisner technique. I don't know if you've ever got anyone on doing that on your
Not through the academy yet, but we hope to, definitely.
right. Well, I started doing that. So I did River City for a couple of years, and then I moved down to London for a bit, and I had this feeling that I'd read a script, and if I was like, oh, I know that, I know what that person, I know, but if it was quite far removed from me, I felt like I don't know what to do here. I don't know how to get to it. And I sort of felt like I'd lost my confidence a bit, almost, with our training, weirdly. Like it took away my natural instincts, I felt, because you had this. oh, here's a way you have to do it, or here's a way where, and I feel like the Meisner technique, it's all about being present and reacting truthfully to what the other person is giving you. And I I felt like that took me back to my love of what, you know, I was acting when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. And
Back to the Hagen exercises at drama school.
yeah, like I never really, maybe I didn't appreciate it properly at the time because I was so young. And maybe if I went back to look at Uta Hagen and look at the books and study it properly, maybe I'd love that in the same way, because I'm sure her technique was about being present. Like you read about her, didn't you? That she was this incredible actress and people went to see her because she would be different every night. And all of a sudden she's blushing and all of a sudden she's crying, you know, and it was, her acting was so surprising. And I feel like that's what Meisner's getting at. I guess any kind of acting technique is really to get the most truthful performance.
Mm.
And I think the thing that that I loved about Meisner was that it's like it takes the attention off you. I think I was always quite, I might not appear shy, but I think there is a real shyness. And so it was like, then I'd be like, oh God, do I look right? Oh, am I saying the, you know, there'd be all that chatter going on in your head. Whereas with Meisner, all your attention is on the other person. And so if you forget about yourself. And so then the emotions come up. However, it's like, yeah, so it's surprising, it's exciting, you don't know what's going to happen next. It's not like you've gone, oh, I'm going to say this line in this way and I'm going to say this line in this way. You don't know, because you don't know what the other person is going to give you. You don't know how it's going to make you feel. And I love that. I was just I was at a couple of Meisner workshops yesterday, actually helping out with some of the newer students. And yeah, I don't know. I feel more excited about it all now than I did at drama school, when I probably had far more fear in a way about getting it right.
I think that's a maturity thing.
Yeah, perhaps. Um,
Because we were very naive at drama school. You know, I was
yeah,
18 when I started, you know, 21 when I graduated. And
yeah,
you don't, I mean, you're still learning about life at that point, let alone learning about something else.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I mean, it was a funny experience for me, drama school. I'd lived in Edinburgh for a year, like I said before, and I'd made friends there who weren't in the acting world. And then when I went to drama school, I felt like, I don't know, it might seem strange, but I was surprised by the um I guess it is a thing in life. Sometimes people don't want other people to do well. They don't want people to excel. And it really upset me. Like I felt, oh, people don't like it if if you do something good, or if you get a part, or and I think that put me off for a long time. I thought, again, like coming back to the Meisner, thinking about what other people, it was like this, oh, what do other people think about me? What do you know, it was kind of like I was
It's like
like,
you were in competition when you weren't really.
yeah. And it was funny because then when you got into the real world of acting and you were doing it, it felt like everyone was so supportive.
Mhm.
Like in the jobs, there was so much support. Everyone was cheering everyone on. But then it's when you're out of that bubble again, it's, I don't know, it's such a funny job, because you, I mean, one of my first, I think it might have been my first professional job, was a Shakespeare. And I remember me and the woman who was playing my sister, we were like running away, screaming, like from these guys with swords. They thought we were somebody else. And we ran through this revolving door. And at the other side, every single time we just were bursting out laughing. And it was like such a joyous, and I was like, I can't believe somebody's paying me to do what I love. And I was like, this is the best job in the world. This is like, I'm just having so much fun. These people I'm doing it with were playing, but it feels real. And it's like me playing in playing in my back garden when I was a kid. You know, it's that kind of, I don't know, just joy of life and connection with other people. But yeah, I do feel sometimes there's that other side, the darker side, where it's, I don't know, a sort of yeah, like you were saying, like a competition, or but I've never felt like that. I always love it. If people get work, I'm like, amazing. It's like more chance for other people, but not everybody feels like that. And then when you do get a feeling that someone's like, oh, what's she doing? Do you know what I mean? I don't.
It's like, yeah, it's like the business side of it is slightly darker than the actual fun performing side of it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's kind of where the competition lies. And one thing that I discussed this with another actor. We didn't get much of that at drama school. We didn't get much of preparation on, writing to agents or how to format a profile or anything like that. Do you think drama schools are lacking in the amount of kind of preparation that they give you for the business side?
Well, I don't know what they're like now. Obviously, we're so old. It was a while ago. But the only thing I remember is John Colclough, was that his name, came from Spotlight and gave a talk. I feel that that's the only thing we got, that one talk. Um, and yeah, I think I was really not prepared for the business side of it. I think I just thought I'll just go in and get every part and it'll be easy. And then I went to an audition. I got the train all the way down from I was living in Edinburgh at the time, and came down for an audition. And cost a lot of money, you're learning your lines, all of that. And then I got told to stand on a spot and lift my skirt up so they could see my legs. And I was like, what? And they were like, lift it up. We need to see your legs. And it's like, oh. And I just felt so embarrassed and so shocked. And I did it. I did it really quickly, but I was like, oh, and it was an ITV show. It was a long running detective drama. And then they were like, okay. And I assumed my legs didn't look right for them. And they sat me down in front of them and they said, okay, well, let's do a bit of the scene then. They let me do 3 lines and that was it. And I was like, oh my God. And obviously by the point I was about to do any acting, I was so shaken. And then I'm getting the train back. And I had another one where I was sat in a room and I was like, oh God, everyone looks like me. This is so weird. And I kind of, yeah, I feel like maybe like you were saying, maybe it's because I was so young and going into it and naive and not thinking about the business side of it, just thinking about my love of it. This is what I want to do, so this is what I'm going to do.
And do you think if we had actors come into drama school, professional working actors come in and actually talk to us about what it's like, do you think that would have prepared you a little bit better?
Yeah, maybe. I think if people were really honest about it, um, yeah, I felt like I mean, actually, I remember talking to my agent after that one where they asked me to pull my skirt up, and she'd said to me, I mean, this is a long time ago now, but she said to me, "Oh yeah, Reanne, it's like a cattle market. So when you're not acting, make sure you're in the gym all the time." It's like, oh, okay. Uh, and I was just like, oh God. And something about that as well made me feel a little bit sad. I was like, this is not about what I love. This is about what I look like. This is about that image, this is, and that, there was something about that that was really sad and disappointing.
Mhm. Do you
Um,
think it's better now than it was back then?
I feel like my sort of acceptance of it now is better than then. Like still I have a weird fear of getting my headshots done. I guess because they cost so much money, and I get nervous and I feel like I pull funny faces, and it's very, I had one photographer, he was called Ross Ferguson. He doesn't generally do actors' headshots. He was more of like an editorial photographer. And all he said to me was, lift your chin, move your nose, do this, do that. And kind of like the Meisner, it was just like, I was listening to him, forgot about myself, and he got the most amazing shots. I was like, that's what I need. I need to not be thinking. But I mean, it is a lot of it. I find that disappointing because I love doing different accents. I love playing characters that are removed from how people might see me now. Um, and I feel there is this thing of typecasting. Oh, she's that type of actor. He's this type of actor. Whereas like the love of the craft of it is playing everything, you know. You've got this whole spectrum of, all human beings go through all different emotions, and we can all live different lives and imagine ourselves, what if we grew up there, or what if we were in this situation. And I feel like more recently, actually getting older, I've had more opportunity. And maybe again, it's my wonderful agent, but she's got me great auditions with different accents. Um, yeah, I had an agent before who said to me, you'll only get seen for your own accent. You won't ever be seen by any new casting directors because you've been in the industry for a while. And if they haven't seen you, they'll be like, there's no point in seeing her. And I was like, what? So, and then I moved, and thankfully she's been incredible. And it's, and that's so important for me. I mean, you were saying you represent some people that we trained with, and so you'll really know them, and that must be so nice for them to know that there's somebody who can see their range and can see like the potential.
Yeah,
Whereas
one of the
sometimes,
hard things about that is that the casting's kind of changed, whereby the industry is so flooded now. There are so many actors because, you know, it's a lot easier to get into than it was back in our day. And I think casting has changed whereby they can find what they're looking for. So they don't rely as much on actors putting on an accent or learning a skill for a role, because if they need someone with that skill, they will find them, you know, because there are so many options out there. Obviously, with self-taping and the online world, it's made it more accessible as well, because, you know, you can be based up in Scotland and be auditioning regularly in London through doing self-tapes. So I think it's kind of opened it up in that way. Would you agree?
yes, actually, it's funny because I saw that thing. Did you see all the stuff recently with Olivia Colman talking about self-tapes and saying that she thought it was disrespectful not to have auditions?
A lot of people have fought back against that and said, well, no, it's actually the opposite because we're getting the opportunity now.
Well, that's how I feel. So I had a period of time where I was just getting no auditions. My partner's an actor, and he had, I think I counted up to 80 and then stopped. So he had like 80 auditions up to like in the year, up to October or something. And I'd had about 3. And, you know, he's looks like a big scary guy, plays gangsters. He does that, you know, he's got a real characterful face. It's obviously different for men and women. It's getting better. That's getting better now. There's more parts. I'm watching a thing at the moment. What's it called? Palm Royale or something. Amazing comedy, female characters in it. But generally, so many programs. It's so many men, and then there's a wife, maybe someone they're having an affair with, sister. You know, they haven't been historically the leading roles a lot of the time. And I was just like, how can, and I felt so lucky because amazingly, I still somehow was getting work. I was like, how am I getting work? Like, I mean, I was very lucky. I'd done Emmerdale, and then they called me back to play a different role. And uh, other things, yeah, things just kind of came in. So I felt so lucky. But I was like, if I was just dependent on these 3 auditions in 1 year, it's like, how, this is like, I'm trying to make a living out of this. How can I do this? Lockdown happened. And I know it's not been the same for everyone. But I moved agents just before lockdown, and she was phenomenal. But for me, I started to get seen. I started to get auditions. I don't know if it was just the agent or it was the self-tapes, but I'm imagining it was the self-tapes because people were seeing more people. So whereas my partner, who was one of the only ones that was in the room, you know, they'd see 5 or 6 people. Now he had much bigger competition. So he didn't like it. He
Mm.
liked being one of the few in the room. Whereas I was like, finally, I'm getting to be seen. And I started getting some really lovely work. And amazingly, like you were saying, often they don't want you to do a different accent, but I started to get jobs. Like I've done a couple of American parts recently. Outlander, funnily enough, I auditioned about 4 times for Scottish parts. And then I got an audition for this very posh RP, you know,
A
well-spoken.
great scene with the leading lady as well. So
Yeah.
we're just going to get onto that. You've, I mean, looking through your CV, you've done some amazing shows, things like Emmerdale, Coronation Street, Doctors, Father Brown, Outlander. What's been your favorite job to do and why?
Ah, you know, I wanted to be an Outlander since they first started auditioning, and I auditioned before it started. And I'd had really long, well, you'll know from when I was at drama school, my hair was like down here. It was a huge mane of curls. And then I shaved it off when I was at drama school, actually. But I'd grown it back again. And just before I got the audition in from Outlander, I cut all my hair off again. So I went into the audition with it like pinned as if it was, I don't know if you remember Meg Ryan used to have short hair, but make it look like it was up. Anyway, I went into the audition, and the casting director was like, can you put down your hair? We love your hair in your headshot. And I was like, I don't have any. Like I'm gonna, and so ever since then I've been like, oh, I really want a part. And I had other things like that, auditions where like I got blonde hair and I went, oh, I'm gonna dye my hair dark for a change. And then the next day I get an audition for a blonde bombshell. And I'm like, oh my God. But anyway, I finally got Outlander. Then I felt this like incredible pressure for it because it's quite an intense scene if you've seen the scene.
Mm.
And it was with the lead. But when I went to do it, she was so lovely. I was really thankful that I got to do my part second. So she did her part first. And so we went over it lots of times, and, you know, I could kind of calm down. And even though, you know, I have done a lot of work, it was still, it felt like this huge thing to me. And I felt like my training, the Meisner training really helped. So it was like that regularity of doing a class all the time, made it like, oh, okay, just treat it like it's that. Don't worry about anything else. And so I did enjoy that aside from the pressure, but I think the most enjoyable was probably Father Brown. Um,
It was a great part you played in Father Brown as well because you know she was quite feisty and you got to use
yeah,
your own accent as well, which was good.
yeah, so for the audition for that, she was written in, she had dark hair, she was French, or like French style, Parisian style, all of this. And I thought, well, I'm not that. And I thought, but this is an amazing part. This is such a good part. So I'm going to go my version of this. So obviously I'm not what's on the paper, but I'm gonna go in. And I got kind of dressed up in the 50s style. And there were two casting directors, and I walked in. I was in the trains got delayed. I fell down the stairs. It was a bit of a disaster getting there. My hair's falling out and everything. And and I walk in the room, and then one of the casting directors started laughing because I dressed up. It- Probably not in a bad way, just thought it was, he was like, "Oh, you've put in a lot of effort." And then I was like, "Oh no, I shouldn't have done. This is really embarrassing." And then the other one was like, "You look amazing." I was like, "Oh, okay, it's fine." And I it was a funny part. She was feisty. Um, and I just really went for it in the audition. I just was like, I love this. I'm just going to enjoy playing her now, because I'd heard actors talking about that. Like, just, you have this opportunity there. Even if you don't get the part, you're the part for that audition, for that time.
And
It's your,
actors forget that auditioning is part of the job. That is
yeah,
part of your job description. So you've got
yeah.
to treat it like that.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, you know what? I really would love to play this. I know I'd be good at this. And I'm gonna give myself a breath because I'd fallen down, because I'd been rushing, because of and I really took my time before I started. Because often you feel a pressure, or I had, to just get going.
Mm.
And it's like, well, no, they want to see you do your best work. So you need to calm yourself down. You need to relax. You need to get yourself in the right headspace and then go. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just flailing around. And I really gave myself that. I remember that in the audition, really giving myself that time, not feeling the pressure. Um, and I think it was the encouragement of that casting director as well. She was like, "You look at it, it's funny. Like, us actors, we're all kind of like,
People forget the casting director is there doing her job, and her job is to find the right person for the role. So they want you to be the right person for the role. So they're only going to encourage you.
yeah." Well, it's funny because it depends on personalities, um how people are with you in the room. And I think I am quite sensitive to that. And so that's probably another reason why I quite enjoy the self-tape, because say it is somebody, and for some reason they look at me and I think, oh God, it puts you in the wrong, it kind of,
And you get to shoot it in a comfortable place as well, where you feel comfortable, you know?
yeah, you've got the time, you can think about it. I mean, from the other point of view, if you're not quite sure what they want, it's quite difficult. If you're in the room, they can direct you and you can do something different there.
Mhm.
Uh, Whereas when you're doing the self-tape, it's your idea of it. You don't then, but then I guess if you get a recall, you get to go in and they've already seen, so that's your take. And
Mhm.
um but there was something funny about when I watched Father Brown, because I do watch what I do. Some actors are like, they don't. And yeah, I feel my shoulders have come up. I hate, or before that, I had hated watching myself back. Like, hated it. It made me feel sick. I never really did what I thought I was doing. It just was awful. With Father Brown, I had a short dark wig. I looked totally different. It was funny. And I actually enjoyed it. I and then I did another comedy job, and I liked that as well. And recently, my most recent job has been comedy. And there's something, I guess it's just much more enjoyable seeing yourself having a silly, fun time. Um, but yeah, Father Brown was just a really, it was just really enjoyable in every way.
Going back to the sort of soap side of it, I mean, a lot of young actors, that sometimes tends to be your first job when you come out, your first job in TV, because there are so many day player roles and bit parts that you can sort of immerse yourself in it. Obviously, you've been in Coronation Street, Emmerdale, River City, Doctors. What was the differences that you noticed from an acting point of view in the way that they operated? Because obviously, unlike a lot of other TV jobs, it's very fast paced. You don't get a lot of rehearsal time. You don't get a lot of time to shoot the scene because they're on really tight time schedules. What did you find a difference between the soaps, or were they all sort of operating kind of the same way?
Yes. So doctors, you have no time, like zero time.
Doctors itself has got no time anymore, has
Well,
it?
I know
Yeah.
it's finished now, sadly. But I think I was doing something like 17 scenes in a day and a half. And like one of them, there was meant to be smoke and it wasn't really showing. And then they were like, scene complete. Like we just did it once. That was, and I was like, there was, he was like, don't worry, we don't have time. So it was like on. Um, Coronation Street had a lot of cameras, and the director for that was phenomenal. Like so I'd done River City, and it didn't have as many cameras. And so if you were doing a scene in the bar, it took all day, or it took a lot of the day. Whereas on Coronation Street, and this director had been doing it for years, and when we did the bar scene, I thought we're going to be in here the whole day. I'm sure he finished it in 2 hours. It was so quick, and he was just, and there was a screen, so it was quite weird being in the Rovers because, oh, sorry, is that me? Because they pull it all out, it's like a set. So they move the tables out, they move the back of the set and everything. So it's this pub that you've seen all your life on the telly, and then you're like, ooh, this is how it all works. And they had this screen above the bar that had what was going on each camera. So you could see all the different points of view. And there was one part where I was just sitting listening to what was going on. So I could see they were filming those guys. And the director said, okay, all we need is a point of view of him looking to her and this and that, and then we're done. And I was like, wow, how can he see that whole thing? And it was like he was knitting the whole scene together in his mind. I was just like, that is phenomenal. And I did quite a nice scene outside on the cobbles. And so he said, okay, we're going. I'm sure he said this, unless I've made it up now, but I thought we were rehearsing. So I was rehearsing the scene. So of course you're very relaxed. You're not thinking about it. You're just going la 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 la. Scene complete. I was like, what? What? I didn't even know we'd started. And I think that was that director's trick, to get people not to overact, not to be more natural, to not be stuck in their head, and he was very good. I really enjoyed that. I played a couple of different characters in Emmerdale. That seemed a bit cool. Well, it was different. You're working with all different actors each time, so it depends on who you're working with, your storyline. River City was quite I don't know. I had quite a big storyline with Robert Kavanagh, which was like a sleeping with the enemy storyline. And this is probably another reason why I ended up going into Meisner, because I almost did what would you call it? Method acting. So I was using my own life and misery, and I made myself kind of ill doing it. I ended up, after the storyline had finished, being in bed for like 4 days. And I thought, this isn't healthy. This is not, and it was obviously quite demanding. When you were doing a lot, you were on a lot, you were working long hours, you didn't have very much sleep. And then there were other times where you were just in once a week. And so you definitely needed the stamina and all of that to keep you going. But yeah, I thought there must be another way that's more enjoyable. I used to love acting. It was a fun thing. And with Meisner, you use something close to reality, but not reality. You use your imagination. And I feel since I've been doing that, it's been a lot more enjoyable for me rather than dredging up, you know.
Well,
things.
that takes us nicely to the next question about your process. Do you have a process? After you get that call saying that you've gotten the job, do you have like a research process or anything that you do as soon as you find out you're going to be playing the role?
Do I? Well, I have done. I'm a bit of an acting junkie. Like I like to go to different acting teachers. I like to find different techniques. So there's like Chubbuck technique. There's Meisner, which is like my absolute favorite. I've mentioned it so many times. Sorry if anyone's bored about that. There's, Stanislavski. There's all different things. There's things we did at drama school. But I think at the end of the day, it's all kind of what works for you in the moment. I did a play last year, and it's quite funny. I thought when I saw the role, when I auditioned, I was like, oh, this is not. And I hadn't done theatre for a long time. I really wanted to do theatre. I really pushed my agent to get me seen for theatre because I've been doing television for so long. And she was like, no, you're seen as a tele actor, screen actor. And I was like, I really want to do theatre. That's where I started. That's where my love of it started. And anyway, she got me this audition and I was like, oh, great, this is easy. And then I got in the rehearsal room and I was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. And it started to show all these kind of difficulties for me. I was like, how do I get into this? How do I show this with what the director wants me to do and my idea of it? And and I felt like it was such a lovely job to work on because it was quite a big cast and everyone got on so well. Everyone was really supportive. And the more we did it and the less you kind of then were thinking about the lines or any of the once all that had gone and it was just the essence of it, the more you started to live in it. And I kind of felt that as well with when I did River City. I had been living this character for a certain amount of time, and I'd read the script and it'd be like, I'd just start crying as the character. I'd be like, I'm feeling what she's feeling here. It would, and it became so much easier then when you're living in it. I think sometimes it's harder, like, say, to go in and do a day somewhere because you have to bring the history or you have to bring all of that with you, and there's also that pressure of like, you're with an actor that's doing it all the time and they're doing it every day, and then you're coming in and you have to match what they're doing, or you have to at least look like you're meant to be there. Whereas if you're in something for a long time, it's almost uh it's that exciting thing of you kind of get into the subconscious of it all, like it's just there in you, and then you play and it becomes different. And the play that I just did, it was with an actor called Jason Merrills, and he was amazing. And it was funny, so we did quite a long run. We started in January, went to July, and as it was coming towards the end, it was like we were all getting more and more excited about the play because it became more precious, because we're like, this is going to end soon. We're not going to be able to do it anymore. And then you really started finding new things and surprising yourself. And on the last week we had mics, because it was such a big theater and it was in the contract that they had to, like, the production company had to provide mics. And they were not like the mics, when we were at the drama school and they had them for what was it we did? Godspell.
Oh, Godspell, yeah. I remember that.
Terrible microphones. And I was thinking it was going to be something like that. These were phenomenal. They like picked up every sound, and we got the most amazing reviews that last week. because I think because you were able to do, so I was chatting to the guy who was like the sound DJ, and he was saying, yeah, with these mics, because they're so good, you can do film acting on stage. And so I had really intimate scenes with Jason Merrills, and it was like we could actually play them in reality then, because we weren't having to push to the back of the theater. We weren't having to show something that would be whispered, didn't have to be a stage whisper. It was living it together. And so it was quite sad to when that came to an end. It was almost like the more you do it, the more it's in your body and the more exciting it is to do. But I've forgotten your question. I've gone on a mad
Oh,
ramble.
that's good. That's what I love about these podcasts. We don't really need the questions in the end. It was more about your process, but I think you kind of covered that. But what tips would you give to new actors who are just joining the industry, whether that be leaving drama school or coming back to it after a break? I suppose what advice would you give yourself if we were to speak to your 19-year-old self?
Yeah, I would say believe in yourself. Um, oh gosh, how would I word it?
Maybe some tips about the casting process, how to navigate that as a new actor.
I think it's more about your own confidence, because I think that when you're in an audition room, they want to know that you can do the job. They want to know that you're reliable in the job. And I think right even up until lockdown, going into the room used to scare me sometimes. It depended on what mood I was in. It depended, and I really worked on it in the lockdown break, funnily enough. I like really did a lot more meditation. I think relaxation is so important. The more relaxed you are, the more creative you can be. If you're stuck in your own head, worrying about looking the wrong way, or you've chosen the wrong thing, or you can't communicate properly with people. And I can understand, going back to what Olivia Colman said, I used to think the person who's the most confident gets the job, not necessarily the person who is the best. But that's what I used to think about auditions, because I didn't have the confidence in those auditions. And so self-tapes were this amazing lifeline to me. I was like, God, I don't have to do that chat before, because I'd always be in the audition like, please don't ask me a question I have to answer. And I'd be like, just let me do the acting first, and then I can relax, and then I can talk to you. But the talk before, which was probably supposed to relax you, never relaxed me. I always thought, should I be doing it in the accent of the thing? Should I be, I feel like I overthought it all. So I think if it does come back to being in the room a lot, I think confidence is such a big deal. Like, it's showing your ability to keep your nerve. And it was funny because I never doubted that I would be able to do a job when I was cast in the job. So it was like I wouldn't be nervous in the character, if you know what I mean. As soon as I started playing the character, but that bit of being myself, maybe that's why actors are drawn to playing all these different characters. But it's like you asked me at the beginning, who's Reanne Farley? It's like, I don't know. She's a million different things. She's a different thing from one day to the next to the next. And I think that, yeah, finding more groundedness in myself. I started doing a lot more yoga as well. And I teach yoga in between acting jobs. And the more yoga I did, and because I love yoga, I was doing something I loved in between rather than doing a job just to pay the bills. Then I became more relaxed, more confident in my life. It was like, I don't need this job. I would love this job, but I don't need it now. So it's like it got rid of that desperation. I think people can sense a desperation. I've only got 3 auditions a year. What, that kind of, you pile everything on top of that audition then. Whereas if you're happy in your life, you're, you know, things are going well, you're working on things that relax you, that make you present. I think that's why I love Meisner as well. I think it's the same philosophy really as yoga. All these things are about being present. And I think the best acting comes when someone is so present and really paying attention to the other person. And so I think that's something that I would say to myself, make it like really just have a conversation with these people. They're just people. They've got you in there because they like you. They think that you could be good at the job. You know, you kind of forget that. It's like these people want you to come in and do a good job.
The end of the day, it makes their job easier.
Yeah, we're all just human beings. Nobody's above anyone else. Don't put yourself above anybody else. Don't put yourself below anybody else. You're there. You're all wanting to create a wonderful piece of work. That's the goal. It's not about, yeah, I feel like way back then, and I probably didn't know it at the time either, but I think I was just so insecure. I was just like, I knew I could act. I knew I could do certain things, but I was just terrible at the interview. Like, I can talk. I've been rambling away here, but when they came to ask me about the character, yeah, I really like the character. She's great. Like, why didn't I? And I would think as well, another thing to do, which I maybe didn't do, is really think about that. Like, even write it down. So I'd know it in my head, but I wouldn't have prepped maybe as much as I might now. So now I'd be like, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's going on. I feel much more articulate now when I'm talking about a part. Back then, I guess it's the fear thing, isn't it? What do they say, like fight or flight or freeze? I think I used to freeze. I just would freeze in the audition. And so I became like this, probably looked like a psychopath or something, staring at them like they were these terrible lions or something coming after me. And so yeah, I really think relaxation is one of the most important things.
Great answer. Great answer. Well, that brings us on to our last question. We asked this to everybody on the podcast. If you could change one thing about the industry, what would it be and why?
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, I feel um like I was talking about before, like certain people are seen so much more than others. And I actually heard a casting director. It may have changed a little bit since lockdown. I don't know how you feel being an agent, but maybe more casting directors see different people now. Maybe
I
it's
think it's
less.
more open. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Um, but I did hear a casting director interviewed once, and she said, "Oh, I use this tiny pool of actors, and I just use them all the time, and that's it." And I was like, "Well, how does anybody get any work? How do you ever see anybody? Like, why is that small pool of actors the only ones that get a chance?" And I guess that's the thing. It's you know, I do go, like I said, I'm a bit of a acting junkie, acting class junkie. And I go to these acting classes, and there are phenomenal actors out there that just can't get seen. They don't get seen, they don't get shown, you know, that it's it is one of those being at the right place at the right time, or and I guess that is life, isn't it? But it's um some way for there to be a fair sort of like a fair chance for everybody, if you know what I mean, for it
Yeah,
to be
to open up a little bit yeah, to take risks. Excellent. Well, Rianne, that's been absolutely brilliant. It's been so good catching up with you. Thanks very much for all your insights. Been so much to go through there. And we'll speak to you again soon.
lovely to see you, Jamie. Thank you.